welcome to the deep dive. Think of this as your shortcut, your fast track, really, to getting your head around some pretty complex stuff shaping our world.
Yeah, we sift through all the research, the data, and basically pull out the key nuggets for you.
Exactly. No overwhelming jargon, we promise. And today, especially for you folks keen to learn fast, we're diving deep into AI. Really deep.
We are. We're looking inside, almost like exploring the biology of a cutting-edge large language model, Claude 3.5 Haiku.
And our map for this exploration is this really groundbreaking research paper called On the Biology of a Large Language Model.
That's the one. And the researchers use this fascinating technique they call circuit tracing methodology.
Okay, circuit tracing. Let's break that down.
Hmm.
Imagine a biologist with microscopes looking at cells, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or neuroscientists making brain wiring diagrams. These AI researchers have basically found a way to do something similar for this language model. They can see the internal parts, the connections as it, thinks.
Precisely. And their big idea, the sort of core hypothesis, is that inside this model, there are these fundamental units called features.
Features, like building blocks.
Kind of, yeah. Think of them as the basic units of computation. Now, the biology analogy isn't perfect. It's not literally like cells, but it's a useful way to think about these fundamental components.
Got it. So our mission today is to pull out the most surprising, the most insightful discoveries from this paper.
We're talking about how this model reasons, how it plans when it, say, writes a poem,
How it gets languages, does math, maybe suggests medical stuff.
and importantly, when and why it might mess up. We want to give you the real aha moments without you needing a PhD in AI.
And there's some seriously cool stuff. Multi-step reasoning happening kind of in its head, planning ahead in poetry.
Its multilingual skills, even the circuits for basic addition, it's pretty wild.
Okay, let's jump right in. First, deep dive. That multi-step reasoning. Take a simple question. Seems simple anyway. The capital of the state containing Dallas is.
Right. For us, it's 2 steps, yeah. Dallas is in Texas. Austin is the capital of Texas. Easy.
But does the model do that? Does it follow those steps internally?
Well, that's what the researchers mapped out using those attribution graphs. Think of them like heat maps showing which internal features light up for that question.
Okay.
And they found these clusters of related features, which they called supernodes, like little functional groups.
Now, kind of supernodes. Give us some examples.
Sure. They found features just for the concept of capital. And get this, some were multilingual. They'd activate for capital in English, but also Bashkenti, ibu kota, Hauptstadt,
Wow, okay. Turkish, Hindi, Indonesian, German.
all meaning capital.
Exactly. Then there were output features that directly push the model to say a specific word, like one for Austin,
Uh-huh.
and features that just generally encourage saying any capital city name.
Hmm.
Plus, features representing Texas itself, separate from Dallas or Austin. Okay, so you got Dallas features, Texas features, capital features, say capital features, say Austin features. How do they connect? How does it get to Austin?
The attribution graph showed the flow. Features linked to Dallas activated the Texas features, makes sense.
Yep.
The capital concept features, they activated the, say, capital features.
Right.
And then here's the cool part. Both the Texas features and the, say, capital features fed into and activated the, say, Austin features.
So it does seem to do that two-step reasoning. Dallas, Texas, then Texas plus capital Austin.
Yeah.
That multi-hop reasoning they mentioned.
It really looks like it, yeah. It suggests it's not just like simple pattern matching. There's some kind of internal computation happening.
But you also mentioned a shortcut. It wasn't just that clean two-step process.
Exactly. The graph also showed some evidence of a more direct link. A kind of shortcut from Dallas features straight to activating, say, Austin.
So maybe it has the logical path and a faster learned association? Like it's heard Dallas and Austin together often enough.
Possibly. It seems to have both strategies available, which is interesting in itself.
So how did they check this wasn't just noise in the graph? How did they validate these pathways?
They did these inhibition experiments. Basically, they turned down the volume on certain feature groups.
Okay, like flicking a switch off.
Sort of, yeah. They suppressed the Dallas features and boom, less activity in the Texas features and the, say, Austin features.
And the answer changed.
It did. The model started suggesting other state capitals, things that made semantic sense given the disruption. They did the same with the capital features, suppressed them, and the model stopped outputting capitals.
So by selectively kind of disabling parts of its reasoning, they confirmed those parts were actually doing the job. That's pretty clever.
It's powerful, yeah. It really helps build confidence that they're seeing the actual mechanism.
And then they did that swapping thing, replacing Texas,
They did. So they first figured out which features represented, say, California. They'd ask something like, the state containing Oakland is.
and look for the California features lighting up, and presumably Sacramento features too.
Exactly. Then they went back to the original Dallas prompt, but this time they artificially activated those California features where the Texas features would normally be.
And what happened?
It said Sacramento.
No way.
Yeah, they did it with other states too, even a Canadian province, I think. The model outputted the capital of whatever state or entity they swapped in.
That's wild. It really suggests it has this internal concept of state and capital that you can actually manipulate.
It does, although interestingly, they noted that swapping in things that weren't U.S. states sometimes needed a bit more force, as they put it.
More force. What does that mean?
It suggests maybe those non-U.S. state features didn't slot quite as neatly into the specific circuits activated by the original prompt. Like the wiring was optimized for U.S. states in that context.
Fascinating nuance. Okay, let's switch gears completely.
Mm-hmm.
From geography logic to poetry. How does this thing write rhyming poems? My first thought is just, predicting the next word, like always.
That's the standard assumption, right? It's trained on predicting the next token. But the research here found evidence of actual planning.
Planning. In poetry.
Yeah. They found that often, before the model writes a line, it's already activating features for potential rhyming words for the end of the next line.
So it's thinking ahead, like, okay, I need a word that rhymes with blue coming up soon.
Something like that, yeah. These planned word features, as they call them, then seem to influence the construction of the current line, guiding word choice, structure, everything to set up that future rhyme.
And this wasn't just a fluke. It happened often.
They saw it in about half the poems they looked at. It's pretty significant because it gives us a mechanistic peek into planning, evidence for thinking ahead, shaping the present for the future, even holding multiple potential rhymes in mind.
Wow. Can you give an example?
Okay, so imagine the previous line ended with tree. When the model gets to the new line, ready to start the next line, they saw features activating related to rhyming with E.
Like be or free.
Exactly. Maybe features for B and C would light up as candidates. These candidate features then boost the activation of the specific features needed to actually say B or C later. They even found broader circuits involved, like features just for that E sound itself.
And they tested this with those intervention tricks again.
They did. They tried boosting or suppressing the planning features for candidate rhymes, say, B or C, or even an unrelated word like red at different points in the line being written. The intervention only really changed things when they did it right at the new line token.
The planning stage.
Precisely, suggesting that's where the decision, or at least the strong bias, for the upcoming rhyme is being established.
Okay, that makes sense. So it picks a target rhyme, like B. How does that influence the line it's writing now?
Good question. They traced it. Those B planning features remained active while the model was writing the intermediate words. And they seemed to activate other relevant features, like if the line became a fuzzy flyer, like a voice, the B planning features might activate features related to insects or flying, influencing the choice of flyer.
So the end goal shapes the journey.
And not just word choice, but structure, too. They intervened on the planning feature, maybe forced it to plan for key instead of B, and then had the model regenerate the whole line. It often changed the entire sentence structure to make ending with key sound natural.
It rewrites the path to fit the new destination. That's really quite something.
It shows a surprising level of flexibility and goal-directed behavior, even in a creative task.
Okay, from poetry planning to understanding different languages, how does it handle multilingual requests?
This was another really interesting part. They tested prompts like the opposite of small is, but in different languages. English, French, le contraire de petit est, Chinese.
And did it use completely different internal parts for each language?
That's what you might guess, but no. They found remarkably similar circuits being used. It seems to be a mix. Some core components are shared across languages, kind of language agnostic, while others are language specific but work in analogous ways.
A combination of language invariant and, what do they call it, language equivariant circuits.
Exactly. So at a high level, you have these language independent antonym features that recognize, okay, they want an opposite. These help guide the model's attention to map the concept of small to the concept of large.
Regardless of whether it sees small, petit, or gris.
Right. But at the same time, you have language-specific features, like maybe an open quote in French feature or other cues from the prompt that figure out which language is being used.
And those trigger the right output word. Big in English, grand in French, the correct Chinese characters.
Precisely. Those language cues direct the final output features. Interestingly, though, they did note that English seems a bit mechanistically privileged.
Privileged how?
The multilingual features that mean, say, large, often had stronger direct connections to the English word big than to, say, grand or the Chinese equivalent. It's like English is often the default target.
So while it can work in other languages, the wiring might be slightly biased towards English output.
It seems that way, yeah. They found these antonym features clustered in the middle layers of the model, and near them, when using English prompts, they also found synonym features.
Makes sense. And they could manipulate these too.
Oh, yeah. They did interventions. First, they messed with the operation. They suppressed the antonym features and activated the synonym features, which they'd identified from English prompts.
Yeah.
The model then outputted language-appropriate synonyms instead of antonyms, like little for small, petit for petit. This showed the operation part of the circuit was language independent.
Cool. What about the word itself, the operand?
They edited that too. On the token for small, or petit, or gris, they suppressed the features representing small size and activated features representing hot temperature, again identified from English examples.
Let me guess, it outputted the antonym of hot in the correct language.
You got it. Cold, froid, etc. Showing the circuitry handling the concept being operated on was also language agnostic.
Wow. Operation operand.
Could they change the output language too?
Yep. By intervening on those early language detection features, they could change the language of the answer while keeping the operation antonym and the operand small, the same.
So you could ask in French, but get the answer in Chinese.
Essentially, yes. They dug into the French circuit a bit more, showing how the model sort of de-tokenizes the word contraire to understand its meaning via attention mechanisms. It's complex, but reinforces this blend of shared and specific processing.
So the core computation often happens using the same internal features, even if the input words are totally different across languages. That seems to be the case, especially in the middle layers. They did an experiment measuring how often the same feature activated when processing translated versions of the same text versus totally unrelated text.
More overlap for translation.
Yeah, much more, yeah. It suggests a unified representation of concepts across languages develops in those middle layers. The beginning and end layers tended to be more language-specific, dealing with input characters and output words, and Claude 3.5 Haiku showed more of this cross-lingual generalization than a smaller model they tested, especially for languages that don't share an alphabet.
Which brings us to that question. Do these models think in English?
Well, based on this, it's not quite that simple. Claude 3.5 Haiku clearly uses genuinely multilingual features, particularly in those middle layers. It's not just translating everything to English internally.
Okay.
But English does seem to have that privileged connection when it comes to linking those multilingual concepts to the final output words. So maybe not thinking in English, but English perhaps has preferential pathways for output.
A subtle but important distinction. Okay, let's tackle one more area. Arithmetic. How does it do math, like simple addition? Is it just memorizing?
That's always the question with LLMs and math. This paper looked at a companion paper focused specifically on two-digit addition, like 36 plus 59.
Pure memorization.
Not entirely. They found the model actually seems to break the problem down. It uses separate pathways, one for a rough estimate, kind of low precision, and another for calculating the exact ones digit. Then it recombines them.
Interesting. How does he see that?
They used visualizations called operand plots, looking at feature activity across lots of different addition problems. Patterns emerge related to the approximate sum, the individual numbers, specific lookups like knowing 6 plus 9 ends in 5, and modular arithmetic for that ones digit.
Can you walk through the 36 plus 59 example with the attribution graph?
Sure. So for calc, 36 plus 59, they saw low precision features like add near 57 getting active. These fed into a kind of lookup table feature, something representing add near 36 to near 60.
Okay, rough ballpark.
Right. That leads towards features for some near 92. But then you also have these high precision modular features activating, like left operand ends in 6 and right operand ends in 9.
Focusing on the one's digit.
Exactly. Those activate features like sum ends in 5, combine the sum near 92 with the sum ends in 5, and you get the final output features promoting 95.
So a rough estimate refined by an exact one's digit calculation? That's not how I do addition.
Right, and here's the kicker. They then asked the model how it calculated 36 plus 59.
What did it say?
It gave a perfectly reasonable, human-like explanation. Add the ones, 6 plus 9, 15, carry the 1, add the tens, 3 plus 5 plus 1 and 9, get 95.
That's not what the internal graph showed at all.
Exactly. Its explanation didn't match its internal mechanism. It suggests a lack of, well, metacognitive insight. It can do the calculation one way, but it explains it another way, likely based on how humans talk about addition in its training data.
That's slightly unnerving. It doesn't know how its own mind works.
In this case, it seems not. And the researchers found these addition features weren't just for math problems. They found a lookup table feature, specifically the one for 6 plus 9, resulting in a 5 activating in totally different contexts.
Like where?
Astronomical measurements, discussions of table costs where maybe $6 and $9 items were mentioned, even polymer research paper dates. Anywhere, the concept of adding numbers ending in 6 and 9 to get a result ending in 5 was vaguely relevant.
Whoa. So that specific calculation mechanism gets reused. How did they know it was causal?
Intervention again. Suppressing that 6 plus 9 lookup feature affected the sum and output features. Replacing it with a definite lookup, like 9 plus 9, which ends in 8, changed the predicted one's digit of the output accordingly.
Okay, so the lookup table is definitely involved.
Yeah. The big question they raised, though, is how the model knows that addition is the right operation to apply in those diverse, non-calculator contexts. That mechanism wasn't clear.
And this flexibility extends to more complex calculations, too.
It seems so. They looked at an example like assert 4 plus 5, 3 exists. Here, it used lookup table features for both the addition, 4 plus 5, and the multiplication, 9 by 3, using the intermediate result.
Makes sense.
But crucially, they also found expression-type features, features that recognize this specific structure of sum then multiply. These expression features activated both the addition and multiplication lookups.
Okay, coordinating the steps.
These expression features also activated another feature representing the number 9, specifically when it's computed as an intermediate step. And this feature seemed to suppress the model's immediate urge to just output 9 after the addition.
So it calculates 4 plus 5 and 9. But another part says, hold on, don't say 9 yet. We need to multiply it.
Exactly. It suggests a strategy for reusing basic circuits like lookup tables, but guiding their application and interaction based on the broader context, like the structure of the expression. Pretty sophisticated orchestration.
It really is. So wrapping this up, looking across all these examples, reasoning, poetry, languages, math, what's the big picture?
Well, it paints a picture of incredible internal complexity, doesn't it? We see these surprisingly structured mechanisms, almost like specialized biological pathways, emerging within the model.
Yeah, that initial analogy to biology, while not perfect, feels more apt now. Seeing these circuits for specific tasks.
Definitely. And those aha moments, like the model planning poems ahead of time or having these hidden ways of doing math that it can't even articulate itself, are really striking.
It's a blend, it seems, of very general abstract capabilities, like understanding concepts across languages or applying addition flexibly.
And these very specific context-dependent circuits that get activated for particular tasks.
Of course, the researchers themselves point out limitations. These tools, this circuit tracing, it's still early days, right? We're just scratching the surface.
Absolutely. This is a snapshot, a partial map. There's undoubtedly vastly more going on inside that we don't yet have the tools to see or understand fully.
So the final thought, maybe for you listening, how does knowing about this hidden biology of AI change things? Understanding even imperfectly that there are these internal mechanisms, some logical, some maybe shortcut-based, some even opaque to the model itself.
Yeah, does it change how you might interact with these systems, how much you trust them? What other hidden processes might be lurking in there that could surprise us or maybe even worry us down the line?
It definitely leaves you thinking. There's clearly so much more to uncover about what's really going on inside the machine. Food for thought, for sure.